Why dance on the blockchain? This is what I wanted to talk to you about. I wanted to hold this space for artists, researchers, dancers, lawyers, and academics to get together and think through, move through this heightened digitization of human movement. My intent for this course has not been to only describe or historicize the encryption of the dancing body, but to grab the issues of decentralization, tech-fueled communities, and crypto to envision together what other kinds of nodal connections we want to see and feel between new tech and the performing body. But to start thinking of how we expect these technologies to be employed in the future, we need to acknowledge the past that defines which practices make their entrance into the digital future or futures. Although in the words of William Gibson, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Without diverting too much towards identity politics, as the blockchain by itself will be proven to be controversial enough, we need to acknowledge how our topic intersects previous situations of precarity, attribution, and property within dancing communities at large. For Chernyavsky, the difference between selling one's bodily labor and becoming a saleable body in which others might traffic has been a key site of racial division, and one with enormous implications. The bodies that are behind the avatars dancing across the digital space are also the bodies that will be indefinitely resurrected into the future. As Gavin Smith refers, the avatars that are created in anticipation of future events comprise selective deposits of being, but in a way that fosters an independent and autonomous becoming or digitized second coming. But why pay attention to these new iterations of movement anyway? So, youngsters are performing dance steps in the metaverse and buying emotes on Fortnite to customize their avatars. What about it? With video games being a $1 billion industry, companies like Epic Games amassed $300 million only in May 2018, mostly by selling dance steps to the users of the platform, digitized through motion capture. But how is this trend towards commodification of movement affecting the communities of dancers behind them? And more crucially for this course, can blockchain technology alter those pathways? In the work Factory of the Sun, Heather Styrel tells a surreal story of workers whose forced dance moves in a motion capture studio just like this are turned into artificial sunshine. But if artificial sunshine is understood as revenues, dancing avatars in video game platforms and VR installations become the visible proxies of workforces behind this new dance economy. Put differently, the bodies and dances that we encrypt today will be the bodies and dances that we decrypt in the future. Wayne Marshall and Roberto Viaggioli go a step further, describing the current digital dance craze and avatarization as a method to cosplay race and gender, stepping into the body of someone else, or summoning its embodied abilities into one's own. This is the angle from which I arrived to this whole topic of the digitization and commodification of movement, by considering its affordances to extend, diminish, or ratify race-based asymmetries within dancing communities. If global diversity is preserved on digital recording devices, while the people who gave rise to this artistry and knowledge have disappeared, then the efforts to present intangible cultural heritage should be judged a failure. This issue is also relevant because people in the left tend to dismiss way too quickly the potential of blockchain technologies, for it financializes art, perhaps moved by the romanticization of artist precarity and the bohemian work ethic that is almost expected of them, as described by Banash. Prematurely disregarding the blockchain, NFTs, and crypto is also at the core of why the conversation keeps being hijacked by right-wing venture investors and traders under discourses of decentralization, self-organization, and auto-regulation, which can easily overlap with neoliberal policies of free markets. Paradoxically, the same buzzwords around decentralization and self-government are precisely why blockchain technologies have attracted anarchist movements, copyleft advocates, and self-described anti-systemic cyberpunks, as Geraldine Harris is putting it. The invitation then is to have a nuanced perspective on the blockchain, juxtaposing it indeed its commodifying nature along with its potential for social mobility, community building, and participation on cultural ownership. As such, Gustavo Caicedo's presentation within this course will be illustrative of how traditional communities could benefit from decentralized applications and the tokenization of culture afforded through NFTs. Under the same expansion, I am thrilled to have with us Marlon Barrios, Lenara Verley from our friends of Motion DAO, whose workshop will deploy the community building possibilities of the blockchain to allow decentralized autonomous organizations to fund and support their own creative projects, as this is one of the most important branches of the concrete applications of crypto. Through the angle brought by Nina Davis, who is also present here, we will offer tools and images to articulate new lines of reflection around the topic. Nina and her work have accompanied the reflections behind the structuring of this course as an artistic intertext. Her interest in the regurgitation of movements that can be traced through and across viral culture, social media, and internet content highlights the construction of new corporalities integrating pixels, flesh, 3D joints, physicality, and data alike. The spread of network sensor technologies has produced this leaky liquid body, a body that both passively and actively emits flows of data. How these flows of data are tangibilized, who gets to reproduce them and copy them, and who gets to be accredited for this in the analog digital continuums is something that will be elucidated through the workshop of Simon Weidegaard from the Law Faculty at UCAN, who is also joining us on Thursday. We are more than happy to welcome Simon's input in this conversation. New articulations between dance and technology, we said a moment ago, and while we need to account for the different ontologies of physical and virtual bodies, we also need to understand their points of leakage and cross-contamination. Oslander suggests that performance recordings are not analogous to mere constatatives, but to performatives, which leads to ask, what kind of performance do we expect from our data? And not only in terms of its interoperability or malleability, but in the sense of the different kinds of poetics that they can set in motion. The encryption of the dancing body as an event with aesthetic resonances will be addressed by Patrick Tressett, who we warmly welcome along our presenters too. Patrick's research will guide participants of the course through Web3 performances as a way to unleash the creative potential of crypto. Finally, hype indeed has been and continues to be one of the prime fuels catalyzing the pervasiveness of blockchain technologies. And we need to acknowledge that this course in itself is also fitting into it, adding more blocks to the chain, as Geraldine Juarez states. Nevertheless, I think that there is nothing worse than speculating about speculative-based systems, such as the blockchain. Thus, throughout this course, you will be invited to mint your own NFTs, merge movement data with crypto, immerse yourself in VR models, and think through the aesthetic and political consequences of doing so. But feel free to step back, hold still, take a leap if needed. On that note, I want to thank Adam Lukowski from the Orpheus Institute, who is our first speaker today and who has kindly accepted to be part of this initiative to establish the very first layers needed for our participants to encounter blockchain technologies. We are very glad to get to learn about the ways in which his practice at the research cluster MetaMusic X has been intertwining crypto with creative outcomes. A special thanks to Adriana Parente, Julia Meroda, Peter Jan Maes, and all our friends from Motion DAO who have designed exciting complementary activities for the end of each of the days of this week and will allow us to try firsthand in immersive environment, digital safeguarding, and creativity, and the way that they can look in the intersection of art and new media. Before finishing, some housekeeping announcement. I will be your contact point for any requirement that you might have for a comfortable participation in this course. So involving navigating the premises here at EPAM, obtaining additional information, or any other logistical aspect. Keep in mind that we have, by the end of the week, a collaborative exhibition of art with, regarding pieces that are dealing with the blockchain. So do reach out to me, to Nina, who will be moderating it, or to your peers to narrow down your selection of the piece so that we can have a better conversation on Friday.